It's midnight. The endless forests of Chernarus sway gently under a cold breeze. Fog clings to the distant tree line, and an abandoned town sleeps in the valley below. You don't hear voices, you don't hear engines, you don't hear screams or gunshots, not even a bird song. Just a whisper of the wind and your own cautious footsteps. In DayZ, silence is more than just an absence of sound. It's a presence in itself, heavy and alive. In that hush, every rustle or far-off echo matters. The world itself, Chernarus, feels abandoned, haunting, and eerily quiet, as if the land itself is holding its breath. There's nothing to comfort you. The night offers its own subtle score, a dry leaf cracking under your boots, distant cracks of gunshots on the horizon, maybe the low groan of an infected somewhere nearby. Mostly though, there is just wind and waves, water dripping from the eaves, the soft thump of your own heartbeat in your ears. It's the silence of DayZ. It makes every moment feel lonely and heavy. You might walk for miles or hours without seeing another soul, yet the feeling of life, or the threat of it, never leaves. DayZ manages to make emptiness full of meaning. The emptiness is the magic of Chernarus' atmosphere at its core. By day you trek across golden fields that ripple like the sea under a pale sky. By night you navigate black woods where each tree could hide a pair of watching eyes. The same field that felt welcoming at noon can feel menacing by dusk. In DayZ, safety and danger trade places like shadow and light. One minute you're basking in a quiet sunset on the coast, feeling oddly at peace. The next minute, a single gunshot shatters the silence and peace, reminding you how quickly calm can become chaos. In DayZ, safety is tentative, a fleeting dream you chase but never quite hold. Yet there is comfort in this desolation. Paradoxically, the loneliness of DayZ can feel like a warm blanket on a cold night. When you're alone by a campfire, hearing nothing but the crackle of flames and raindrops on leaves, it feels strangely safe, as if the rest of this dangerous world around you is kept at bay by the curtain of darkness. In those moments of solitude, you find a kind of refuge in the very emptiness that once terrified you and always surrounds you. The environment shapes you. A dense fog rolling in off the shore can send a chill of dread through your bones, urging you to move carefully, quickly. A bright morning after a storm might fill you with a fragile hope, convincing you that maybe today you won't starve, maybe today you'll find a friend. The weather, the landscape, the quiet towns and villages, they all convey to you a state of mind. A ruined church on a hill might make you pause and reflect, feeling small amid the decay and chaos. A rusting playground in an empty town might stir up memories of life before the apocalypse. Everything in Chernarus feels placed with a purpose, even if that purpose is simply to remind you of what's been lost. DayZ doesn't care about making you feel powerful. It gives you space and dares you to survive. This space, this beautiful, indifferent world, is where the magic truly happens. DayZ's atmosphere isn't just background scenery. It's a character that accompanies you on your journeys, by turns gentle and cruel. It lulls you with serenity, then startles you awake with terror. It makes you feel alone, yet somehow also connected to the barren wasteland around you, in the rustle of the wind through the pines, or the waves hitting the shore. There's a quiet beauty that few games ever really capture. But DayZ captures it intimately, making every gentle sunrise, gloomy twilight, and thunderstorm not just a backdrop, but an integral part of your own survival story in Chernarus. Dawn breaks as you spot another survivor on the road ahead. Instantly, your heart jumps into your throat. Are they a friend, an ally, or will they be the end of you? In DayZ, every human encounter is a high-stakes duel of trust and fear. You both hesitate, weapons raised, peeking from behind cover. Maybe you call out. Friendly? It's more a plea than a question. Sometimes you'll get shot at. Sometimes you'll get beat. Sometimes there'll be silence. And in rare instances, you'll get a hesitant, friendly in return and feel a wave of relief. But mostly the only answer is a crack of gunfire and an abrupt death. In this world, the line between kindness and cruelty is razor thin, and it's drawn by the choices we make. DayZ was literally conceived as a social experiment. Throw a bunch of hungry survivors into a wasteland with limited supplies and see what they do. The infected quickly fade into the background. It's the other players who become the real threat. Every stranger is Schrodinger's friend. They're both potentially your comrade and your killer until the moment comes and the box is opened. The game's creator learned during his own survival training that starvation can push a decent man to the edge. He thought of himself as honorable, but found himself plotting to steal food from others when he was desperate. DayZ takes the human truth and asks us, what would you do to survive? When your stomach is empty and your veins are full of fear, how much of your morality would you cling to? In the harsh world of Chernarus, some players decide that cruelty is the safer path. Trust no one becomes the law of the wasteland. They shoot first, loot the dead, and don't lose a minute of sleep over it. But kindness still exists in Chernarus, and when it appears, it might feel like a miracle. The psychology of it is fascinating because the world is so ruthless. A simple act of compassion becomes precious. I remember once crawling in the dirt through the forest right outside of Staroy. My vision was blurry, I was sick, cold, and had lost a lot of blood in a firefight. I barely made it into a barn, thinking I'd bleed out or starve to death alone. But there was a stranger, a man with a rifle in his hand. I expected a final gunshot. Instead, he hurried over and placed a bandage on my wounds, then shared a can of food with me. He nodded a few times and disappeared into the trees without even waiting for a thank you. We didn't speak at all, but that silent, random act of mercy stuck with me. It meant more to me than any scripted heroics ever could. In a game with no rules enforcing goodness, every good deed is genuine. DayZ is unparalleled in creating those unscripted human dramas. No director, no AI, and no quest marker told that guy to save me. He just chose to, just as others and sometimes we ourselves choose to betray, to kill, to steal. You'll have stories of panic, betrayal, and generosity that no writer could ever orchestrate. A quiet fishing trip with a stranger can turn into a tense standoff when resources run low. A band of former enemies might bond together against a common threat, only to splinter apart over the spoils of victory after raiding a base. Every single player you meet is a wild card, and that uncertainty writes DayZ's most gripping stories. Of course, not all stories are heartwarming. There are dark tales of cruelty, murder over a can of beans, hostages taken for sick entertainment, betrayals between supposed friends. Some survivors even abandon humanity entirely and resort to, let's say, alternative food sources. So if a grinning stranger offers you a special steak, you'd better pass. There's a non-zero chance it might be long pig and you won't like the aftertaste. It's grim, but it's part of the landscape. For every noble hero in DayZ, there's a cannibal with a cooking pot, and most of us lie somewhere in between, just trying to get by without losing ourselves. What emerges from this chaos is a kind of mirror held up to our real selves. Stripped of laws and consequences, who do we choose to become? Some discover they'll protect others even at their own risk, like the medic who runs toward gunfire to save a stranger. Others embrace a darker freedom, taking what they want simply because they can. Most of us hover in the gray middle, cautiously testing each encounter, weighing the risk of trust against the instinct of self-preservation. DayZ forces those split-second moral decisions upon us again and again and again. And each time we get a little closer to understanding the fragile bonds that hold civilizations together, or how easily they fray when survival is on the line. DayZ reduces life to its bare essentials. You spawn on the coast with nothing, and from that moment on, your day is consumed by simple, primal concerns. Find food, find water, find shelter, stay alive. In the game, as in our ancient past, survival is both the journey and the destination. There's a strangely soothing clarity in that. Modern life can feel overwhelming with its abstract worries and digital noise. By contrast, DayZ hands you a concrete task. You're hungry or you're not. You have a dry place to wait out the rain, or you don't. Hunger, thirst, shelter, safety, companionship. These become your only metrics of success, a stark reminder of what truly sustains us. Moment to moment, you're constantly checking on the basic needs. Is your stomach full? Do you have wood for a fire before nightfall? No skill trees, no fancy level up is there to save you. Only your own wits, willpower, and resourcefulness. The smallest mistake, drinking from a dirty water source or misjudging how much daylight is left, can spiral into a death sentence. But when you get it right, when you survive another night, see another sunrise, it feels like a true accomplishment. You feel clever when you make it through one more day. You feel invincible when you get across Northwest Airfield without even being shot at a single time. And you might feel stupid when you die because you ate something you shouldn't have. In DayZ, victory isn't a high score or a cutscene. It's the quiet satisfaction of cutting up kindling in a rainstorm and keeping a fire alive till the morning. This endless loop of scavenging and surviving can start to feel like a meditation on life itself. There's no story, no final boss. There's no grand narrative in DayZ telling you why you're struggling. Survival is struggling, and survival becomes meaning in itself. Some players, after staving off starvation and patching up their wounds, finding guns, gear, and shelter, find themselves asking, now what? There is no win. There's nothing to chase. Like life, DayZ doesn't draw a finish line. It simply lets you continue until you can't. To some, this can be disorienting. It can even feel empty if you expected the game to hand you a purpose. But there's a flip side. DayZ gives you the freedom to create your own purpose. Once your belly is full, your canteen is filled with clean water, what will you do with the time you've been given? Maybe you'll trek to a hilltop or a military base. Maybe you'll just watch the sunset and remember why this world is worth fighting for. Maybe you'll decide to help a lost newcomer you encounter, becoming a protector in a land with no rules. Or maybe you'll be their end. Some like to build a little cabin in the woods, a base, a spot to call home in an otherwise transient existence. The lack of a scripted goal is an invitation, an empty page where you fill in what matters to you. So in this way, DayZ acts as a mirror to our real lives and our modern loneliness. Think about it. We live in an era of constant connectivity, yet so many people feel utterly alone. DayZ drops you into that same emotional landscape. Dozens of other players might exist on this server, but you could wander for miles and hours without human contact. You know others are out there, but you might not see them. It's the loneliness sharpened by uncertainty. Walking an empty road under gray skies, you can't help feeling it echo the real world. Surrounded by people which are somewhere out there and yet feeling profoundly alone. But this solitude can be oddly healing. In DayZ's quiet stretches, in the breaths between the chaos and gunfights, when there's just you, the wind and the crunch of your boots, a kind of peace finds you. You become attuned to the rhythm of your own survival. Slow cadence of footstep, breath, heartbeat. This is the strange gift of DayZ's isolation. In a hyper-connected world, it offers a refuge for silence. By stripping away everything, the game gives you space to think, to simply be in the moment. The monotonous chores of scavenging for berries or fishing by a lakeshore become almost therapeutic, a respite from real-world anxiety, where the only question is, how will I make it through this day? DayZ's vision of life is uncomfortably pure. It says, survive, and that's it. In doing so, it quietly asks us something profound. When you peel away the layers of modern life, the jobs, social media feeds, the distractions, what remains? A beating heart, a hungry belly, and the will to see one more dawn. The act of surviving in DayZ can feel like a tiny digital parable of existence. We struggle and improvise, we savor fleeting moments of beauty, and we just keep going. Maybe that's the point, that life, even in its simplest form, justifies itself. DayZ just makes that truth a little more literal and accessible. There's a dirt road leading down through the forest towards Kamishovo, and every time I walk it, I feel like I'm coming home. Not a real home, of course, just a cluster of pixelated buildings and trees on a server. but the memories I've left there make it home all the same. I remember limping into a farmhouse as a fresh spawn, beaten half to death by infected and starving, and finding a forgotten can of peaches on the floor that probably saved my life. Now, hundreds of lives later, that place is like a little shrine to me. The world of DayZ has a way of turning mere locations into landmarks of the heart. Landscapes and places in games can hold emotions just as real as any childhood backyard or neighborhood. In DayZ, every hill and hollow can become a memory. The church overlooking Electro isn't just a prop. It's where you and a friend hid from a storm, sharing food and stories until the rain stopped. The rusting shipwreck at Riffy isn't just an object. It's the spot where you said goodbye to a friendly soul you never saw again. These places are soaked in the memories of countless players' stories, like layers of invisible sediment. You can almost sense it when you return, an uncanny feeling that others have been here before, that this quiet field or gas station holds echoes of laughter, gunfire, panic, and relief. The landscape remembers, even if it's us that carry the memory. Coming back to a familiar town after a long time can feel oddly nostalgic. You might catch yourself smiling as you walk past Gorka or Stary Sobor, thinking of the many gunfights you took part in. Or you might walk along a stream north of Dolina, remembering how a stranger taught you how to purify water. Cherno, Electro, Berenzino, Tizzy, you name it. There's comfort in those places, even if the danger remains. In a game world defined by impermanence, where you can lose everything you have on a whim, the map itself becomes a kind of constant, a canvas that endures while survivors come and go. Returning to Chernarus after months or years can hit you like revisiting a childhood home. The streets of Soleno or the hangars of NWAF might stir up a bittersweet mix of familiarity and loss. You recall who you were the last time you stood there. You remember the friends who were with you, the gear you carried. It's a digital nostalgia, sure, but that's as genuine as any other. In our minds, imaginary worlds can become sacred spaces, sanctuaries of memory and meaning. Perhaps it's because we invest so much of ourselves into these places. Hours of hope, fear, laughter, triumph, and defeat, all of it happening in this virtual landscape. Chernarus may just be code, but it's also the stage for moments that changed you, even if only a little. The first time you saw the sunrise crest over a mountain after a night of hell. That all lives on in that mountain for you. The field where you lost your best gear in a bandit ambush, where your best friend might have gotten shot, that ground is stained with the story of sacrifice. Over time, you develop a relationship with the game world itself. You navigate by memories as much as by map coordinates. It goes both ways. We give these places meaning, and in return, they give us a sense of place in an otherwise indifferent universe. A radio tower might become a lighthouse for your lonely soul, a beacon that assures you you're not lost. A nameless pond in the woods might become your pond, because that's where you finally caught a fish and survived another day. When a virtual landscape holds this much of a story, it stops being just a game map. It becomes a repository of your experiences, a place where a part of you will always wander. So we cherish these digital places, and we tell stories about them as if they were real. We speak of that one town up north with the same fondness or dread as one might recall a real location from years ago. We feel a pang of longing when a beloved server resets its persistence and wipes the slate clean, not because of lost gear or bases, but because of the lost places we made our own. It's amazing, really, that a bleak, post-Soviet fictional country can become so personal to so many people, almost sacred in a way. But that's the power of DayZ. It becomes a landscape of memory. And memory, in the end, is what turns any ordinary place, even a digital one, into hollow ground. Let's strip away the infected for a moment, the hunger mechanics and the harsh weather, the shooting, and what's left at the core of DayZ is the human story. Your story. Players form attachments in DayZ that can seem puzzling to outsiders. Why mourn the loss of a backpack full of virtual gear and food? Why feel genuine gratitude towards a stranger you only knew for 2 minutes? It's because every item, every encounter, every step in this world represents time and life that you fought for. When you carry a beat-up rifle for hours, scavenge to find each precious bullet, and use it to defend yourself, that rifle starts to feel like an old friend. Your gear isn't just a collection of pixels. It's a record of your journey. The hatchet you've used to chop firewood at 10 different campsites, the blood-stained coat you've patched up time and time again after surviving firefights, a silly memento or teddy bear you keep in your pack. All of them are chapters in your survivor's tale. Losing them hurts not because of the loss of power. It hurts because of the loss of your own history. Dying in DayZ wipes the slate clean, and with it go all the little tokens that reminded you of what that specific life had been through. And what of the people? In a world so hostile, the bonds you form, however fleeting, carry a weight all their own. If you and another player share a sunrise and a can of peaches beside a campfire, that moment imprints on you. Maybe you only knew them for an hour before your paths diverged or they put a bullet in your back, but you won't forget them. There's a special camaraderie that comes from facing peril together, even briefly. It's why tales of brief friendships or tragic betrayals stick in our minds long after the session ends. DayZ teaches you to treasure human connection precisely because it's rare and unpredictable. Meeting someone kind out there feels like finding an oasis in the desert. You cling to that feeling knowing it might be a long time before you experience it again. Every death in DayZ means something because you lived a life leading up to it. Unlike games where you respawn with a click, here a death hits hard. It's the full stop at the end of a story you were writing in real time. You remember how it began, the first frantic scramble on the beach, and every chapter that followed, right up to the moment life was snatched away. Maybe you died stupidly, falling off of a ladder. Maybe you went down in a blaze of glory defending a friend from bandits. Either way, that death has its weight. It teaches you to value the life that came before it. You think about what you might have done differently, or you simply mourn the sudden loss of everything your character had. And then you exhale, hit respawn, and wash up on the shore again with nothing at all. A new life, a new story, waiting to unfold and to be told. There is a profound, bittersweet beauty in this impermanence. DayZ wipes itself clean with alarming ease. Bodies despawn, Gear gets looted or ruined, camps and bases get raided and vanish. Nothing is guaranteed to last, not even your relationships with other players. You can spend an afternoon laughing and surviving with someone, and in the blink of an eye they're gone, dead, logged off, ran away, and you're never going to cross paths again. But rather than making everything feel pointless, this fragility is exactly what makes it matter. Nothing lasts, and that is why every moment counts. The can of beans you share with a stranger might be the only meal you ever have together, so you savor it. The final glance you exchange with a friend as you bleed out on the cold ground without exchanging gamer tags is heartbreaking and beautiful because it is final. In DayZ, as in life, we are defined by our own impermanence. The fact that any encounter can end at any time turns even mundane moments into cherished memories. A quiet walk through the woods, trading jokes with your buddy, can become one of the highlights of your week simply because you know how easily it could have gone another way. The game teaches a hard lesson. The lesson to let go. You learn to accept that loss of gear, friends, even life. Not with cynicism, but with a strange appreciation, because each time you start over, you carry the story of those you lost and the lessons you learned in the last life. Perhaps that's the human story beneath DayZ. That meaning isn't in what you accumulate, but in the experiences you collect and the memories you carry forward. DayZ is punishing, often cruel, sometimes absurd, but if you're patient and a little masochistic, maybe, it offers something few games ever do, a sense that a virtual life truly matters. In its own twisted and brutal way, DayZ reminds us that every day surviving is a day worth celebrating, that every connection in a lonely world is precious, and that even pixels on a screen, fragile and fleeting, still matter. Let's step back and look at all those threads woven together. The eerie silence of the woods, the uncertainty of meeting another soul, the struggle to find meaning in just staying alive. Ghosts of memory attached to every hill and house. Together they form something almost mythic in nature. DayZ, in its unassuming way, becomes a quiet myth. A story we step into, a story we live. It's a myth not of heroes or of villains, but of survivors and of souls searching for hope in the rubble and ruins. Like the myths of old, it teaches through experience. We learn about ourselves when we're crouched, hungry in the tree line at dusk, deciding whether to risk shooting at a stranger for food. We confront the duality of human nature every time we choose between pulling that trigger or extending our hand. We discover the value of simple things. Dry clothes, food, a warm fire, a companion by our side, in a way our comfortable modern lives often obscure. In DayZ's world, abstract ideas like trust, sacrifice, or fate become tangible. Every decision feels weighed with consequence, every small victory a testament to perseverance. There's something sacred in how DayZ lets us generate unscripted fables on our own. One day you're an anonymous castaway on the shore, later you might become a wise wanderer who knows which berries and mushrooms are safe to eat. You might become an avenger stalking the bandits who wronged you. Maybe you meet a stranger at a campfire and share stories like travelers swapping tales on a long road, each recounting our own odyssey of loss, betrayal, and survival. These anecdotes of kindness shown or cruelty endured, of near-death escapes and bittersweet reunions feel like the oral traditions of a small, scattered tribe of survivors. They bind us player to player across time zones, server resets, countries, and even continents. They bind us into a community of people who have been through things together, even if separately. In the end, DayZ's greatest achievement might be that it makes meaning out of emptiness. It takes a desolate map and imbues it with the full spectrum of human experience simply by letting us loose in it. It's a mirror and it's a canvas, reflecting human nature, projecting our imagination. A lonely highway at night becomes a stage for existential contemplation. A chance meeting in a deserted town becomes a lesson about trust or betrayal. A military base littered with debris of past conflicts becomes a reminder that the mightiest fortresses fall and life goes on, one step at a time. This humble game, without any narrative or scripted quests, no missions, manages to evoke themes of life and death, community and isolation, memory and longing. In doing so, DayZ transcends entertainment and etches into philosophy. It asks the same questions our oldest myths and literature do, but in its own hushed, interactive way. What would you do to survive? Why do we need other people? How do we find beauty in despair? Each player's answer comes not by words, but in choices made and stories lived. DayZ is, to me at least, at its heart, a meditation on survival and meaning and the quiet truths of being human. And like any good myth, it leaves us not with a simple answer, but with a feeling, an insight that lingers long after we log off for the night. Maybe it's something as humble as a greater appreciation for a roof over our heads and a warm meal. Maybe it's a deeper understanding of how loneliness can weigh on a soul. Maybe it's just a memory of a virtual sunset that moved you in a way you can't quite explain. That's the subtle magic of DayZ. When the game fades out, the lessons and memories remain, echoing in the chambers of your heart as softly as the wind through the pines. Night falls once more in the forests of Chernarus. Midnight, the wind has settled, the trees stand watch like silent sentinels. A few glowing embers crackle in the dying fire at your feet, fighting against the dark for just a moment longer. You pull your coat tighter, listening to the quiet, that profound, enveloping quiet that DayZ can give. In its stillness, you feel the weight of all that has happened and all that could yet happen. It's as if the world is holding its breath for a moment, just like it was at the very beginning. Maybe this is the true magic of DayZ, that in a brutally unforgiving place you can still find pockets of peace. Its beauty lives in its fragility, the knowledge that every fire burns out, every night ends, and every life, no matter how stubborn, eventually falls to the cold dawn. Nothing lasts here, and that is what makes each sunrise so quietly miraculous. Every new life, every time we start over on that beach, it's another chance. Fragile, precious, not at all guaranteed. And now you sit there in dark, and you realize that despite everything, you've grown to love this world for all its heartbreak and wonder. The loneliness, the humanity, and the survival, it all meant something after all. As the first light of dawn bleeds into the sky, you can't help but smile. In the end, maybe the reason we keep coming back to DayZ is because it reminds us that life, even in pixels, still matters.